Hi everybody, Nick the Record Lover here from Music A Friend for Life. Welcome back to my page. Now, I know we have a lot of Beatlemaniacs out there, that follow the Fab Four, but do we have any Byrdmaniacs out there? Well, if there are, this album is definitely for you. This is Byrdmaniax, released by the Byrds in 1971 on Columbia Records. Now, this may cause, I don't want to say controversy, but this may cause opinions to come out, and I welcome them, of course. But I believe that as the Byrds went on from Mr. Tambourine Man up to 5D, their early days on Columbia from 65 to 66, I believe after that the music started, it improved in vast ways, I should say. 5D was a real big jump for them. That was like the Revolver period. But enough about comparing different bands with different albums, okay? To say that 5D was the Byrds' Revolver, or, the Kinks' Village Green Preservation Society is like the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper. You can't really compare those albums to each other. Everybody took a concept and ran it in their own direction and succeeded in many different fashions. Okay, whether it been psychedelic or they went folk, it didn't really matter. But by 1971, the Byrds, they had a lot of personnel changes. As after David Crosby left, after Chris Hillman left, after Michael Clarke left. We had guys like, in 1968, they had Sweetheart of the Rodeo, which was a big country rock album for the time. It didn't do so well at that point, and they did perform some stuff at the Grand Ole Opry, which didn't go over too well at that point. But there was a lot of country rock influence, and that probably was the start of it, I would think, Sweetheart of the Rodeo. But that's another story. By the time Byrdmaniax came out in 1971, the group had, like I said, gone through many personnel changes. Well, on this album, we have Skip Batton, Clarence White, Gene Parsons, and of course Roger McGuinn, the only staying member of the band. But I feel that between the years of 1967 and 1971, as the band members changed, the music changed, obviously, but I also thought the Byrds took a giant leap each time they did a different record after Younger Than Yesterday, which was released in the early 1967. Byrdmaniax is a beautiful album. I don't know how many of you have heard it. I'm sure some of my friends here on Facebook might have heard it, or some of my friends on YouTube might have heard it. This is the original 1971 copy. This is how the Columbia label looked in 1971. With the Columbia yellow perimeter going around. It's just the Byrdmaniax. So that's the original record. Here's the beautiful cover. They call this Death Masks, is what they call this artwork, but it never occurred to me that it was anything like that. That's according to the liner notes of the CD, which is right here. I have this. This is a Retro World import, because the Columbia version of this with the bonus tracks is out of print. I had to get that used online, believe it or not. But this is a brand new copy that I was able to find on eBay on Retro World Records, and I think it was about maybe $12.99, and it was brand new and free shipping, and it has terrific liner notes, all about behind the scenes of how the album was recorded. But I really have a soft spot for this album. Glory Glory starts it off. It was an Alan Reynolds tune, and it really kicks off the album with a nice gospel feel. And Pale Blue, Roger McGuinn. It's a Roger McGuinn composition. It's a song that you would want to hear, or you would hear like in the early dawn, like when you're just rising, and you feel that calmness of the morning. And McGuinn does a great job with that ballad. I Trust is another Roger McGuinn ballad, and it has a lot of backing vocals. I think Mary Clayton is on this LP, singing backups, like a gospel kind of backup. Tunnel of Love, which I believe was it Skip Batten? Tunnel of Love? Let's see. Tunnel of Love on side 1. Tunnel of Love was Skip Batten, yes, and Kim Fowley, who wrote some of these songs on the album as well. And I love the song Citizen Kane, written by Skip Batten and Kim Fowley. It talks about back in Xanadu, diamonds fell like rain. Citizen Kane was king. Oh, Citizen Kane. He talks about Errol Flynn, Fatty Arbuckle, people of the times. And I think it's a funny song, but it's also just a great song in itself, especially with Skip Batten's vocals. And side 2 gives us "I Want to Grow Up to Be a Politician," Roger McGuinn, and it's a funny type of, I want to say quirky. No, and nothing the Byrds ever did was quirky. "I Want to Grow Up to Be a Politician" was, a dream kind of a song that would bring the world hope that if he grew up to be a politician, he would be tough, but he would never be scary and take over the beautiful land. Things like that. "Absolute Happiness," written by Skip Batten and Kim Fowley, another great ballad. But here's a good one. "Green Apple Quickstep," written by Gene Parsons and Clarence White. And I'll be darned if I had never heard one of the greatest country instrumentals of all time. Country rock instrumentals. Oh, and it's got a wonderful harmonica played on it. And even on the CD set, there is an alternate take of them going through the track with the harmonica player who played on the session, and they're trying to tell him, what times to come in during the song. It's really, really neat. "Mr. Destiny," another one. "Kathleen Song," written by Roger McGuinn and Jacques Levy, another great one. Kathleen Song. "Jamaica, Say You Will," a beautiful ballad written by Jackson Browne, who was then a little bit unknown at that point in 1971, but it's a beautiful, beautiful track. Overall, I have to give this album an A+. It's one of those unsung hero type of albums, if you will. The Byrdmaniax, like I said before, probably have it and probably love it, I'm sure. But if you've yet to hear it, you're in for a big treat. And some of the bonus tracks, there's an alternate take of "Pale Blue," and as I said before, there's an alternate take of "Green Apple Quickstep." So, once again, Byrdmaniax, and this is pretty neat. This is the original inner sleeve, the original Columbia inner sleeve that came with the LP. And it even says, the inner sleeve, which gives you news. It's almost like a newspaper of all the latest albums that came out on Epic and Columbia Records at that point. And it even talks about Byrdmaniax. So, some people wrote, Michael Ross, who was an author and a writer for Cream magazine at that point, said, when describing the Byrds' music, you sometimes have to fall back on the word magical, or maybe religious. Possibly religious with "Glory, Glory" and "Jesus Is Just All Right," which was on the Ballad of Easy Rider LP. An album that I'm getting the materials together to do a video on that one, so stay tuned. Also, there's one for the Rascals' Peaceful World. I thought I'd throw that in there because that's one of my favorite Rascals LPs. It came out on Columbia in 1971. But on the bottom here is an ad which is still here that the person who had this album before me did not cut out. It left it intact. You can become a Columbia Epic A&R advisor for $3. For $3, you can participate in an experimental program we're setting up. We're calling it Playback, and it's the first time we've ever asked our consumers to help us select what sounds and which records are worth pursuing and promoting. It wasn't a fan club, and it wasn't a scheme to take money. The program worked something like this. You paid $3 to get a special 7-inch or a 33 RPM sampler, 7-inch 33 and a third RPM sampler records. And you got to listen to them for $3 and was able to write back to Columbia and Epic on whether or not you thought that they were good enough to be signed to the label. For $3. To be around at this time, to be an A&R person for $3 at Columbia and Epic, that would be a dream. So, Byrdmaniax, Stereo LP, 1971. And the catalog number for it is KC 30640 in the original stereo copy. And it sounds beautiful in stereo on vinyl as well as it does on CD. But on CD, it does, if you really have a great stereo system, it does come out very, very beautifully. So, have a great night, folks. Enjoy this video, and there'll be more to come. So stay tuned for Music A Friend for Life. Peace. Enjoy the music.